This video is how to protect yourself on the internet. 1. Everything you do on LinkedIn, don't do it anymore and do the opposite. Let's go forward. Any online, publicly visible, in any way, shape, or form, including if someone has to log in and promise not to steal your data, any website, any source of information, anywhere, especially the internet, but not just limited to it, makes it massively too easy to steal your information, falsify your identity, and get away with it. And if you're over a certain age range, the valid documents that were used at the time you were born and when you were younger, which are the basis for most people's identity, are so easily faked, don't release your data. Next, if you're younger, also don't release your data. Plain answer, don't use LinkedIn and do the opposite of what they ask you to do. You never include your real birth date, birth location, birth name, name of relatives, name of doctor, anything. In any form. Any physical sleeping location you've ever existed at. That means wherever you had a residence. Residence is defined as where do you sleep at night on a regular basis for any period of time ever in your life. I have a list of places lived, a list of places worked, a list of places educated at. Don't reveal your education history. Don't reveal any information about your medical conditions. Just don't. Workplace history, none of it. So literally everything you would put in for a dossier on yourself, which you should make once and put on your hard drive, none of that should be released. I have a false dossier, however. What is the punishment for producing false autobiographical information and putting it on the net? Nothing, except misrepresenting a specific birth year or your age range for purposes of age range restriction is legally a violation now, because so many people misrepresent how old they are to try to get away with shit that we cannot discuss in this video. Obviously, you know why you don't do that. So put in the correct year. You can be off by a couple of years if you're old enough, because you just say, I hit the wrong key on the keyboard because I'm old. No one's going to believe that about me, obviously. But it's plausible deniability, but you're talking about a corporation like Facebook. Who fucking cares what they complain about? Next. A false name or birth date is only really legally actionable beyond maybe a fine for $1,000. Yes, I'm telling you, if you have to push things, this is the punishment, or a month in jail. If it is a legal duty of disclosure or fact. Credit cards, most of the time, require accurate information. Housing applications, most of the time, require accurate information. Legal forms and government, same thing, except if you set up a limited liability company with a human-sounding name and get away with it, people have done that, you don't have to give them your information ever again. And if it's legit a corporation, it just has to be a paper company. They can't require you give up any information. That's how to Be Invisible, J.J. Luna's book, years and years ago, did it. You'd set up a company because corporations are treated like people, except you don't have legal rights. You don't have certain rights. By definition, if you set up yourself as an LLC and it looks like a company instead of a person's name, you don't have a right to privacy anymore, ironically, but you get more privacy. The principal in the company has to write out signatures. They don't require you to print your name most of the time. Now they do, but at the time you can get away with it. But if you make it a human-looking name, and it's similar to the way you write your name, as long as you don't get asked certain questions, you can get away with this for several years. And many cities and municipalities pad their Chamber of Commerce list of companies with people who just came in and gave literally $1 a year for 23 years, in my case, to have a company exist in their city. It doesn't have to really exist, but it has to be a P.O. box, but it can be the same P.O. box dot something, so it's a P.O. box with all the mail that comes in, and they remail it to you. Find out the word remailer. If you want to actually change your date of birth, which I've been able to double check on, you can legally, but you have to prove a record or the record of birth is wrong. I have 2 birth certificates and 1 death certificate and some other crap that happened. So yeah, that was a thing. And legally speaking, in court, I was compelled by the judge to provide my own information while stating I'm the only source of it and this is easily faked. I also stated that I'm not a convicted felon. I've never been arrested for or I am not guilty of falsifying documents, but I'm trained to do so because I'm one of many people who helped make it to where your passport couldn't be copied. I'm one of millions of people, maybe, that contributed information on how this can be done because there was an open call for hackers to do that at one point. But that also means I'm on the list. So if I do any records, they really check my records to make sure my information isn't falsified because I'm a target because people get mad at me for fixing something, and I'm also possibly forging my own data. Or I might be somebody else trying to forge my data to screw me over. This is long and complicated, but let's move on. So, do you have to provide accurate information to YouTube, Facebook, MySpace, whatever? Who uses MySpace? The answer is no. You don't have to provide them any factual data. If they offer the option of putting up a pseudonym, that definitively states they're aware of the problem. They can't claim they don't know about it. Birth dates. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, 4th of July, and any public holiday in general in your area will be the least likely birth date recorded due to exhausted trauma ward staff on holidays because people come in drunk from car accidents and paperwork gets processed the next day, so the official date of birth is the day after or the day before. Or people know that that's going to be a really busy time because they're smart enough, and they're told by their obstetrician, if you want to get a cesarean section or induced birth because you're already overdue, we'll do it on a convenient day because you get away with that. Also, people have a tendency of getting busy certain times of the year, which happen to be 9 months before a period of time where there's not that many holidays. The most common birthdays in the United States are between July and October. They peak in August and or September, depending on what year. Now, this is a weird thing about it, but the most common birth date is September 9th in the United States currently. But we also have September 9th through 20th, and those are 9 of the 10 most common, but it used to be peak in August if you're older. Depends on the year. The most common birthday being September 9th, you can use that to hide in the shadows, or like I do, use January 1st, the second least common. When I fake my birth date, it's January 1st, because it's the second most uncommon. The most uncommon is actually New Year's and Christmas. Christmas being the most, but it varies. But January 1st, New Year's Day, yeah. Not many people, because the doctors are hungover, the place is filled with car accident victims. A lot of people give birth in taxis. No, I'm not kidding. That really is actually what happens. It's just it's a tendency. February 29th, Leap Day, and December 24th, Christmas Eve, are the rarest birth dates on record simply because it just happens to be that way. People will go to the hospital and give birth after the 24th because because they want to have a Christmas baby still to hold it in. I don't know what the hell's going on here. You guys are weird. The January 1st one is the least likely to be a red flag, and it's the least common. It makes you look unique. It puts you as a spike on statistics. And if you have a generic sounding name, hey, let's go for it. But remember, it's long, bored, winter, holiday, drunken nights that cause the most births. Just say it. Just admit it. We're all accidents. Shut up. Social Security Office Actuary, Chief Actuary, birth names and surnames, 1990. First names: Mary, Patricia, Linda, Barbara, Elizabeth, Jennifer, Maria, Susan, Margaret, Dorothy. Male: James, John, Robert, Michael, William, David, Richard, Charles, Joseph, Thomas. You can also look up the most common names that have always been in place, the most traditional first names and middle names. There's a middle name list, but don't bother with it. Why? Michael, Murphy, Morgan, Kelly, Lee, and Taylor can all be last names, middle names, and your first name, even if you're male or female in many cases. There are equivalents in other languages. Male anonymous first, middle, and last names can easily or more easily be Nelson, Parker, Stewart, James, Ross, Russell, Perry, Cooper, Ward, Howard, Thomas, Allen, Martin, Roy, Wilson, Scott, and Watson, and variations of these. Why would you need to know that? Because you're a John Doe without saying John Doe? Also, one of the more common names that you can find for people who are immigrants from a certain country is John Doe and Jane Doe. because the last name is literally Doe. Which means, and yes, some of them at Ellis Island, I swear to God they did it, it's all going to be their fault, used DOE. So, DOE is also an acronym, go look it up. Let's move on. On social media, put up a fake name. Put up a fake birth date. January 1st will work, but don't do that too much. Pick one of the least likely or most likely. Don't use days that are significant in time and space. Don't use anniversary of a certain incident in New York. Use September 9th. Don't use any holiday. Even if you're trying to be the most or the least common, just don't do them. But use common fake names. Now, to do this in meat space, like with credit cards and stuff like that, set up a limited liability company and just use an LLC. How to do this retroactively? You've done all the screwed up. You set up your LinkedIn. Go on your LinkedIn profile and put in false information. It's not illegal. It's a fucking internet resume. Say you've piloted the Starship Enterprise. Just put in a bunch of fake information, and after it's completely fake with nothing accurate to you, change your name if you can get away with it. I don't know if they let you do it. Archive.org and Archive Today, copy and paste it in and attempt to archive it. Use variations of it where you do HTTPS or HTTP, the World Wide Web, www thing or not. Or put it in with none of that information. It's just linkedin.com/whatever and have that try to archive. Keep doing it until you can get it done. Do it every couple of days with your false information. And then close your LinkedIn account with false information on it. Data retention rules require that they erase it eventually simply because their computer systems are eventually going to have to do it anyway, and retaining information that's not visible anymore is not a priority. Also, find out how to legally compel them by law to erase your data, current and previous, and contact whoever they sold it to erase it. Just do LinkedIn first. If your business you worked at demanded you provide accurate information and said they were going to put it up on the web, contact a public defender lawyer type thing, a free clinic, legal clinic guy, to explain to them, no. Under no circumstances should you have done it. And if you have done it, go to the lawyer and get a no and make them remove it from their files. Unless you're a principal in an LLC that owns it, you don't have to publicly publish literally anywhere except a couple of countries like Britain. Next thing, if you're in countries that require that, you have to publish that. I have found when trying to track somebody down, specifically an individual who harassed me and threatened to hurt me, that they don't actually require you to do a damn thing. You can put up false information. Use parking lots for your address. Use a mailing address that's a remailer, so it's not really your email address or physical address. It just remails it. They receive the mail, put it in an envelope, send it to your address. They know your address, but no one else will on the outside unless they get a court order. Or use a safety deposit box number. You can actually use that almost like you can a P.O. box, and you can technically have stuff sent to some of these places. They just don't say they're a bank or some holding location. It's for privacy reasons and a safe deposit box. But you can also just use a P.O. box for a business. Next, like I did, get a human-sounding name and either make it so long that it goes off the edge of the credit card and off the edge of the internet, or just set it up that way and see if they make you change it. Or just use legitimately a business name for doing everything. But when it comes to the internet, you have a right to be forgotten under certain conditions. Now, let's say you're Facebook. You receive a message. Waptek says, I am a victim of identity theft. My bank has been notified. I demand you remove the information. A, I refuse to do it because I'm making a nickel a year. Or B, I erase it because I'm not an idiot. Facebook's been an idiot a couple of times, and it's compelled them to stop being stupid. Most of these companies will erase your data, and they have a form for it. But you have to go look it up. I don't know where to look them all up. I can't even include all the links because it's mostly people listing one from 5 years ago. They change them every year. Next, if you want to have a social media account after this, set up the new one over here with false information first. Tell people to go there to look at this weirdo, which is you, and then start erasing your old data. And you're going to have to use a bot app on your cell phone to erase all this data from social media one at a time because they make it as hard as possible. Don't bulk delete, individually delete. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. And I'm Michael Murphy, Morgan Kelly, Lee Taylor. Bye.